we're going to cut this and hack into it to get it to connect down to our AC connection that goes into the switcher. We're just going to, fasten it behind the two screws, the two bottom ones for your line, your neutral. And we're probably going to use this wire right here. Let's see. We just got this long length of wire that was with the original cabinet, and it's got some good crimps on the end. We don't need the smaller wires, we just need the thicker, heavier gauge. But I'm going to cut a length of that off and probably just leave the smaller ones pigtailed and wrap them up in case we need to somehow run 120 volts with some low current to it for something later. Something about the coin doors, or that meter that I thought about putting back in the coin door, which I don't know if I've got the space now because I put the video remote board there for the monitor chassis. But that's not super important. But like I said, I'm still out of some of these lugs. So to get those to put in behind the screw terminals, might as well just use these. I'm just going to strip the casing off this wire, and since that's heavy gauge enough to carry some good AC current, we'll just tap it into the end of that cord since it doesn't reach, and just run it on down, and we'll have our Marquee light fixture working then. So okay guys, I'm changing it up a little bit. I went ahead and nipped those little wires off that were also in here. You can see the remnants of them in there. There was a little red and black wire, and these are crimped really good. And like I said, I'm running low on all these connections, and I want to use stuff out of my junk supply. I want to use what I've got on hand, but still do a good, respectable job putting this together. So I'm going to reuse these, and they're heavy enough gauge to carry a little AC current. And it actually was an AC wire. It was one of these newer type AC wires. These newer type that's got like the slick flat coating around them. Whereas like on the end of this LED under the cabinet light, which is going to be our Marquee light. Come on, focus up. See how that's got the wire that you can actually like split easily, the negative, the neutral and the hot part. Well, we're going to take and carefully cut part of the plug off and kind of wire these one at a time. So your large blade on the end of a plug is your neutral, and the thinner blade, this one right here, is your hot. So we're going to do our neutral first and keep it together, and we're going to go to our white wire. And so the other end of this, which we already have just about ready, and we've kind of separated the exterior sheathing, which is a little tough on these because it's really hard to split. You can't just split it by hand like you can the white ones, or whatever color they may be, the ones that have the little split down the center. But we're going to make sure we make that to this white one so that we keep our polarity straight. And also when we connect to our switching power supply down there, we're going to make sure that we connect our neutral to the one labeled for neutral on AC, and the line side for the one we're going to connect it to the lower one, which is for the line side, just to keep our polarity correct. We're going to nip that off, do one line at a time, just so we can keep that straight, which we could always go back and ohm it out, or check our continuity, but we'd have to go there and take the Marquee off and check all the way from up there down. Unless this is marked, sometimes they're marked. Yeah, it's very hard to see. You think, well, there's no difference in either side of this, but if you look on the neutral side, very hard. Let's see if I can get you close enough. Come on. Yeah. Do you see how that's got little splits around the wire? That's your neutral side. It's the way it is on these cords. If you look on the other side, it's slick all the way around. They do that to help denote the neutral side. So anytime you see that, you see how it's got like lines running down through it, you can actually feel it with your finger. That's always your neutral side. Sometimes they'll have, if it's a black cord, it'll have a perforated white line that has been printed on there on the neutral side. Okay guys, we've cut loose our neutral conductor here, and we're about to connect it to the end of this wire. Keep it on the white, which is kind of denoted for carrying or being connected to your neutral. And some people might ask, well, is that thick enough gauge? Because actually, if you take a look, this wire looks larger and thicker. And to be honest, it does have a little bit more copper in it. If you take a look at the end, see if I can hold it up and compare it for you. The insulation around the cord, I'm sorry you're looking at my feet, but here we go. The insulation around the cord coming off of the LED light fixture is thicker. It doesn't look like the gauge of the conductor is much larger, but I don't see any rating stamped or written on this wire. So without opening up the Marquee and looking there how much amperage is supposed to draw or how much watts it runs out, I can just, in my mind try to guess. But the thing is, this wiring is stamped right on it that, let's see, it's rated, well, doesn't really tell what it's rated, but it says it can, the temperature rating is 105 degrees Celsius, 18 gauge wire. Where are we at? Yeah, 18. So hard to use this little phone. It's 2-conductor, 18 gauge, and rated for 300 volts. Well, we're only running 120 volts, and 18 gauge wire. I feel comfortable that it could take 5 to probably 8 amps or more through it with no problems at all. I mean, you have 14 gauge wire in most 15 amp circuits in your house, and this game's probably not even going to draw 2 amps. And this is only part of the game. So I feel comfortable, mating this wire at the end of this other wire, even though the gauge may be slightly smaller. I feel confident that we could get several amps to run through this wire and it wouldn't even heat up. So, but anyway. Okay, guys, I've chosen to make these connections with wire nuts because, and a lot of people will tell you, usually when you're working with AC, it's preferred to have a mechanical connection. Now, I was real tempted to join these wires or twist them together and solder and then just heat shrink them because it really, in my mind, looks a lot better. But what we're doing is twisting these together. We've gotten our, let's see if this will focus. You see the little variations vertically along this wire. You can see that it's got some relief there. There's little stripes, and you can actually feel it. That is my neutral, and I made sure I joined it before I even finished cutting the plug off the end to the white wire. So they've been twisted together, and the wire nuts come up on there. I had to look to get some small enough because these are only two like 18 gauge stranded wires, and you have to get pretty small wire nuts to just join that many wires together. If you get too big, it's going to be so loose, there's almost no reason to put it on there. But now we're going to do our hot side over here, which of course it looks white, but this is your hot side. It's a slick wire, doesn't have the little texture to it that the other side has. And as a matter of fact, I'm seeing a rating now on this wire that I didn't see earlier. I don't think you guys can read it. I'm probably going to have to get a magnifying glass. But it probably tells you, like the voltage rating, the temperature, and the gauge. And I got a feeling we're going to see 16 gauge since this other wire was 18, because I do feel like it's slightly beefier. But we're going to go ahead and make this connection, and we're going to put these heat shrink tubings that they will actually just fit over the entire wire nut. We're going to shrink them down, and then we already have a large piece down here at the end of the wire, and it's going to go up and go over both connections and cinch it all up. It's going to look a little lumpy there, but it's going to be very secure mechanically and electrically. Okay guys, we got our 2 wire nuts on, and we're ready to heat shrink these small heat shrink tubes on here. I just cut one in half. We just want to cover these up and give them a little strain relief. Then we're going to pull the great big one over there, and hopefully I've calculated right and it will fit, barely. But this time, instead of a hairdryer, I've got the Drill Master. Came from Harbor Freight several years ago. I've only got to use it 3 or 4 times, but it's a very good heat gun. And the thing is, it's so funny because it's rated for 1500 watts. Well, some hairdryers are rated for up to 1800 watts or 1850 watts. But this thing sure does seem to get a lot hotter. It's got 2 temperature settings. I'm just going to use the low. Let's see how it works here. See if I can do this without getting anything else in the cabinet hot. It doesn't seem to blow as much air. I think it just creates more heat. And the thing is, yeah, it's shrinking up good. We're using the heat shrink tubing that I didn't really like as much because it fit better on these particular wire nuts. That's shrinking fast. Look at that. That works good. I just guess the way they make these things, no matter to the wattage, they just work better than a hairdryer. It's not hardly blowing this nowhere near as much. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop there for a second. I think it's got hot enough. Let me put this on me where it won't burn me. Ooh, yeah, I smell it. It created a good bit of heat. Insulation is just a little warm, and that didn't even take nowhere near as long as a hairdryer. So yeah, heat gun works a lot better for that. I don't like the idea of using lighters. I know some people use lighters, and it probably works fine, but I just feel like I'm going to damage some insulation. So see, we've got some stress relief or strain relief by putting that on there like that. And I'll be back in a second and we'll do the big one. Okay guys, we just barely fit the big one up over there, but it's got both wire nuts in there, and it's just barely proud of the left and the right. So hopefully it'll cover them enough to, you know, encapsulate this. And it was kind of hard to do it also because it was still a little warm when I done it, and so it was trying to shrink up on me as I pulled it over. So let's just do the low setting again. I'm going to try to move it around and heat it evenly. Yeah, that's shrinking up good. Now I think this is from my preferred pack. It just shrinks up so much better, so much more evenly, if you ask me. And this is the stuff I got. It was either AutoZone or Advanced Auto. Whoever sells AutoCraft. So now we've got mechanical connections, and we've got this heat shrink tubing as a strain relief. I'm about to run out of recording space on my phone. So I'm going to stop right here, guys, and you'll see pretty much the results. You can see the outline of exactly how those wire nuts and the wires are. So that's really strong connection. Okay guys, I have those all shrunk up good, and normally I wouldn't hesitate about pulling a large piece of heat shrink down over these to make them even more secure, but I'm going to do it anyway because I do like seeing the neutral color there and the high, you know, the black, so I could tell it easy when I'm hooking it to the power supply. But remember, I said not only could you look at that like ribbing to find your neutral side of a wire like this if you're not sure, but you can also look for a stripe, and it's a little hard to see here, but if you can see, there is a white stripe on the neutral side of that sheathing that goes over this from the factory. Kind of helps you tell which side is the neutral, and it just favors that side where the white is a little bit. It's a little harder to tell like that. Sometimes it'll be like a stripe, kind of like going down a road and seeing the passing lane, you got a dotted line, but this one just has a solid white stripe kind of. But we're going to pull the large piece over. I only have 35 seconds to see if the Marquee works because I'm completely out of storage space on my phone. I think I just scared the bird, so it must have lit up. Success. As long as it doesn't burn up.